Today on Stewart-Cox Family News, NYC starts deporting migrants. No more sanctuary city. Hospitals, schools and hotels are filled with migrants. The city argues that knowingly sending migrants here to overwhelm our social services system violates New York state law. Leave a comment below and now let's see the clip.
We need to ensure that dangerous people don't remain on the street.
Deportation flights from the U.S.
Their belongings on the tarmac, lying aside manacles and chains.
Do you say you want to get ICE involved to help deport migrants suspected of crimes?
A long line of shackled men and women scooted off a private detention center contractor's bus, up a mobile staircase, and shuffled onto a private jetliner. This is a deportation flight run by ICE Air.
New York City didn't create this crisis. Not only is it a financial burden, but it is also a burden to the quality of life.
Migrants who were deported to Haiti today attacked pilots and immigration officers on another flight after it landed. Several of those men stormed another recently arrived jet carrying families.
We need to ensure that dangerous people don't remain on the street, and it doesn't matter if they're migrants, asylum seekers, or if they're long-term New Yorkers. This city must be safe. We deserve to be safe, and I believe that wholeheartedly.
Are you looking to take executive action to make that happen?
The topic of New York's sanctuary city status remains in the headlines. We're going to hear from Mayor Adams tonight. The mayor has been speaking out against it.
The mayor's shift in opinion on sanctuary laws follows a series of high-profile crimes in which many of the accused suspects are newly arrived asylum seekers. Many times this week, he argued that current policies are a detriment to public safety. Mayor Adams on Tuesday called for more cooperation between federal immigration officials and local police, supporting the idea of them working together to deport migrants who are suspected of serious crimes.
I don't believe people who are violent in our city and commit repeated crimes should have the privilege of being in our city.
The city first began limiting cooperation with federal immigration authorities in the 1980s. But in 2014, under Mayor Bill de Blasio, City Council added teeth to previous executive orders, passing a law that prohibits law enforcement from honoring ICE detainer requests if a foreign national has been charged with a crime but not convicted.
The mere fact we cannot share with ICE that this person has committed 3 robberies, that this person is part of an organized gang crew. Mere fact we can't say that and can't communicate with that, that's problematic for me.
Tonight, a battle brewing between New York's governor and the city's mayor over how to handle the crushing migrant crisis. Governor Kathy Hochul's office issuing a harsh 12-page letter Tuesday night, calling out the city's response and what it says is a failure to use state-offered help.
And Mayor Adams is taking a look at the city's sanctuary laws to address the migrant crisis. This time, he's focused on crime and public safety and the city's ability to collaborate with ICE to address those issues. But speaking with the city council speaker earlier today, she says it's a non-starter, that jobs is the answer, not jail.
We are not considering changes to laws. These laws have been in effect for decades.
New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams Wednesday standing behind the city's sanctuary laws, saying they were enacted for a reason, to protect innocent immigrants who historically have felt threatened because of their status.
If the council were to change things, it would impact more people, I believe, negatively than a small fraction of what we are looking at right now.
In recent weeks, a small fraction of migrants arrested for high-profile violent crimes. Mayor Adams yesterday saying these incidents should be reported to ICE, but the city can't under the long-standing sanctuary laws.
We can't have these small number of migrants and asylum seekers that have identified that they're going to be dangerous, hide under the law that there's nothing you can do about it because you cannot tell ICE.
Speaker Adams saying collaborating with ICE is not the answer.
People are penned up in HERCs, in other places, in respite centers, whatever we want to call them, these places with different policies with nothing to do. For me, it's going to be the work status.
Council Minority Leader Joe Borelli siding with Mayor Adams.
We are introducing a bill, a total repeal of the 2011, 2014, 2017 sanctuary city laws. I don't anticipate much support from the other side. unfortunately. They should come back with their own new version of the city's sanctuary city and non-compliance with ICE rules that allows the mayor to properly get people out of here who are committing violent and repeated crimes.
As for Governor Hochul,
this is a city rule. City council are the ones that he has to work with. I'm going to continue defending and working under the state law.
New Yorkers need to send a clear message to our elected leaders. Demand better from our criminal justice system.
15-year-old Jesus Rivas Figueroa remains in custody without bail. He is being tried as an adult, and Monday he pleaded not guilty to second-degree attempted murder in the February 8th shooting in Times Square. Figueroa is accused of shoplifting and then aiming the gun at the security officer who stopped him, but then allegedly missing and hitting a tourist in the leg instead. He's also accused of shooting at a police officer trying to arrest him in the middle of crowded Times Square.
We're no longer blurring the teen's face now that he's being charged as an adult. The PBA showing up to court in support of the officers.
This individual believed that he could steal. He believed that he could carry a legal firearm. He believed that he could shoot into a crowd. And he believed he could kill a New York City police officer. And he thought he was going to get away with it.
Arraigned in court on Saturday, police say Rivas Figueroa and two friends stole items from the JD Sports store on Broadway Thursday. When confronted by a security guard, police say he opened fire inside the store, hitting a 38-year-old tourist from Brazil in the leg.
This can't be the message that we're sending the world, that you can't come to New York City, that you can't do some shopping without getting shot.
Two officers spotted the teen near 7th Avenue and 47th Street and tried taking him into custody. That's when he allegedly fired at the officers before running into the subway. Court documents say the teenager returned home and tried fleeing to the city with his mother the next morning, but he was apprehended at a home in Yonkers. Court documents say he was hiding behind a dresser.
This is a national problem. It's unfair for local municipalities and cities to handle this problem.
But the president says the border is secure. Is it?
Well, I don't know the definition of what they're using as secure. You know, they
would you say it was secure?
I think too many people are coming through various pathways and cavities in our border, and we have to be extremely careful because not everyone that's coming is pursuing the American dream. We need to be conscious of that.
One thing Governor Abbott and Mayor Adams agree on is that the border problem is a Biden problem.
There's only one reason why this is happening, and that's because Joe Biden has eliminated all of the 4 policies that Donald Trump put in place that led to the lowest illegal border crossings in 40 years.
The point is, we are here to help, and when we identify areas where we think more can be done, that's what we're doing. And the reason for the letter was simply that a judge told us we had to do that.
The letter says the city asked the state for assistance, then refused to use some state-recommended facilities as shelters and did not implement programs in a timely manner. Hochul's office says it's offered to spend $150 billion this fiscal year to help reimburse the city for shelter costs. But the invoices submitted so far barely account for $138 million, adding the city can and should do more to act in a proactive and collaborative manner with the state. Mayor Adams playing down the notion that there's trouble between the two.
People who depict that letter as a brutal attack against us, you know, that's how people want to see the governor and I fight. That's not going to happen. I like her, she likes me, and the things that we can learn from each other, we are going to do together.
The intra-party sparring comes as the number of migrants in the city tops 100,000 people arriving since last spring.
The city has already spent more than $1.73 billion on this crisis. We'll spend an estimated $5 billion this fiscal year alone. We've been very clear we cannot handle this crisis solely on our own.
The city opening another shelter in Queens this week in the parking lot of a state-run psychiatric hospital, the men's-only facility housing 1,000 protesters demonstrating against the shelter last week.
All men, 1,000 of them is too much.
While others complain the site is unfit for the migrants.
There is no 24-hour transportation here. There are no subways here. This is inhumane.
Early this month, the city coming under fire for these images. Migrants sleeping on the street outside the historic Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan converted into a shelter.
Many people died along the way. I made it through, so guess I can't give up.
Critics blasting the Adams administration, saying they left them in the streets for days as a political tactic, trying to extract more aid from the federal government and discouraging other migrants from coming to the city.
What we've been experiencing for several months now since they opened up the respite sites is inhumane treatment and people that are coming here for help and being blamed for a system that has been in shambles since before the migrants got here.
The city pressed today about accusations that there were shelter beds available for those migrants.
What was appropriate for them, for what they need, that's what we were providing.
You're saying it was more appropriate to leave them on the sidewalk.
I'm saying that we took the appropriate steps.
Despite the admonishing letter from the governor, the city still asking for more help.
There's a couple things that we would love the state to help take a lead on. We've called for a state of emergency at the federal level, so if the state can help expedite that, get that done, we would love that.
But the future's still uncertain for hundreds of migrants in New York, once again caught in the middle of a political face-off.
Border battle once again heating up here. We just got our hands on some new migrant encounter numbers from our CBP sources that confirm that we are on track to beat last February's encounter numbers. We've already seen nearly 140,000 people enter the country, and that includes Venezuelan migrants as well. We've already seen around 6,000 individuals from Venezuela come in to the country this month alone. Now, Nicole, it's important to note here that only about 2,000 migrants from Venezuela have actually been removed from the country on these repatriation flights over the last 4 months, which is just a fraction of who we're encountering down here. Now, let's take a listen to what Representative Tony Gonzalez had to say about what's really going on here with these repatriation flights and what the Biden administration is saying.
They tell you one thing and they do another. Details matter. You know, when you say you're repatriating people, you're deporting people to Venezuela, or are you deporting dozens? Are you deporting hundreds? Or are you deporting thousands? And it's very clear that they went from deporting dozens to zero. And that is not going to fix the problem.
Okay, so what happens to those migrants? That's an important question there, right? Because they did get that final order of removal. Well, they cannot remain in custody forever. So a case review has to be conducted. Sources tell me they're likely going to be placed under a supervision or in an alternate to detentions program, which is already strained. Right now, we know they already have limited resources to track individuals. So my source is also saying here that these individuals are not going to get that notice to appear like we're seeing with a lot of the migrants who are processed and released, Nicole. Because these individuals have that final order of removal, they will eventually be removed. But that is the case for 1.5 million people who already have a final order of removal, Nicole, and remain in the United States.
Former President Donald Trump has vowed to crack down on immigration again if he's elected to a second term in office.
All the time, I'll solve the border problems within 24 hours of taking office.
Some of the policies he wants to implement may sound familiar, but others would be unprecedented. Trump has said he would bring back his Remain in Mexico program, which forced non-Mexican asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for the resolution of their cases. The program was terminated by President Joe Biden, who promised more humane and orderly immigration policies. Trump has also said he will seek to detain all migrants caught crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally, ending what he calls catch and release. And he has pledged to close gaps in the border wall, a core promise from his 2016 campaign if he returns to the White House.
I will immediately reinstate and expand the wildly successful Trump travel ban on entry from terror-plagued countries, territories, and places.
In an October speech, Trump pledged to restrict U.S. entry to people from the Gaza Strip, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, and, quote, anywhere else that threatens our security. Trump also said he would bar the entry of immigrants who support Hamas and send deportation officers to pro-Hamas protests.
If you support Hamas or any ideology that's having to do with that, or any of the other really sick thoughts that go through people's minds, very dangerous thoughts, you're disqualified.
Trump also plans to launch the largest deportation effort in U.S. history. According to a report from the New York Times, Trump aims to deport millions of illegal immigrants with large-scale roundups and by creating camps to hold them while they await removal. He's also vowed to take aggressive new steps with the help of the National Guard to deport immigrants with criminal records and suspected gang members.